and all-powerful, starting with the elderly wolf uncle. Chapter 86. Wanda nodded, eager to try, and directly stretched out his tender white little hand to grab Mjolnir's hammer, and violently exerted force. Even the whole delicate little face was flushed, but it still failed to shake the hammer. It's actually not good. Quote. Wanda let go of her hand and took 2 steps back, her face full of loneliness and some grievances. I'll try it too. Seeing this, Chen Tian smiled, touched the girl's head, and was also interested, holding the hammer handle with one hand. He began to improve the power in his hands. However, even if I use all my strength now, can't I shake it? Chen Tian looked at the Mjolnir hammer that was still motionless on the ground and raised his eyebrows. However, he was mentally prepared, but he didn't feel much surprise. It seems that his strength is still a little worse than a Dinbi, who put a spell on Mjolnir. But after thinking about it, the other party can be the king of the gods, and now he can't compare with him for the time being, and there is no shame to be ashamed of. Subsequently, Chen Tian wanted to try again whether he could use his psychic ability to touch the divine spell that sealed the hammer. The invisible spiritual fluctuation suddenly spread out and shrouded the hammer. Can it actually work? Chen Tian unexpectedly found that the moment his spiritual ability touched the hammer, the latter actually loosened slightly. It turns out that it can be cracked by another kind of thinking. However, this is related to his psychic ability being too strong. After all, he is now Datro's super brain. Plus the professor's super brain, plus strong psychic abilities to do it. This also proves that problems are not necessarily solved by brute force. But at this time, above the firmament, it was as if a pair of eyes suddenly appeared, and then endless coercion swept down and enveloped him. For a while, the whole person seemed to be under the haze-shrouded sky. Chen Tian knew that Odin was watching. The guy worries that he has ruined the experience of his son Thor. Forget it, for the sake of Thor's power and bloodline, I won't compete with you first. He narrowed his eyes and calculated in his heart, and immediately let go of his hand. Chen, did the hammer move just now? How did you let go? Wanda next to him saw Chen Tian let go and asked aloud. You're wrong, I can't help this hammer. Chen Tian said casually, let's leave here first, go find a hotel to stay, and rest. Quote. Wanda heard this, and her big eyes flashed. Do you want to stay in a hotel together? Yes, I can't throw you away. Chen Tianying said. Do 2 people live together? Wanda looked at Chen Tian, from head to foot, and from foot to head, and some movies that had been accidentally seen on the video before and only 2 actors appeared in her mind. For a while, the expression on the little face was both nervous and expectant. It's 2 rooms, 2.2 per person. Chen Tian saw that the girl was cranky again, and helplessly smiled and interrupted Wanda's thoughts. After speaking, he turned around and got into the car. Oh. When Wanda heard this, her divergent thoughts converged and she followed the car with some loss. Subsequently, Chen Tian drove the car towards the nearest town. Shortly after the 2 left, SHIELD cars arrived at the scene one after another. The staff who came down from above immediately dispersed the onlookers and blocked the scene. At the same time, many people were busy setting up temporary research institutes. And in one of the parked black cars, Agent Hill looked at the information and breathed a sigh of relief. Boss, Chen Tian has left here and gone to a nearby town. Then, she turned on the communicator and reported, he was just curious, came to take a look, and didn't do anything else. Quote. The words fell. Nick Fury's voice sounded in the communicator. Hill, I remind you that Chen Tian is an extremely cruel guy, and I hate him. Quote. But I have to admit that he is also very cunning, and you have to be careful when you say this. Nick Fury paused for a moment and continued, he must have come here for some purpose. Quote. Most likely for someone's abilities. You should also pay more attention to this. P.S. Who said that many bloodlines are hybrids, and if you can return to the sect with 10,000 swords, you are invincible. There are also ideas such as raising big chaos, and the protagonist must be strong enough. Chapter 72. Loki, the god of evil. Chen Tian, who angered Shenwei, suffered death. The time soon came to evening. The sun sets in the sky, and the red light spills over the earth, painting everything with a unique afterglow that belongs to the cycle of day and night. Where Mjolnir fell, the people of SHIELD were busy without stopping. Chen Tian and Wanda had already arrived in a nearby desert town and found a hotel to stay here for a night. Chen Tian opened 2 rooms under Wanda's resentful gaze. After driving the latter into the room opened for her, he resisted the other party's resentful gaze and said, good night. Then closed the door without mercy. This girl, Chen Tian smiled helplessly. Through his super 5 senses, he heard the other party's dissatisfied muttering in the next door. In other words, this girl is too young, he is not a pervert, and he can't get his hands off. However, probably because she was too tired from playing today, Wanda's room soon sounded with the sound of even breathing after falling asleep. Chen Tian rubbed his eyebrows and said to himself, it's time to get down to business. He did not forget that this trip to New Mexico was for Thor, the god of thunder. One by one, an invisible spiritual fluctuation suddenly spread out from his mind. Now, after fusing the Krypton bloodline, Chen Tian's spiritual ability is also constantly getting stronger. However, in an instant, the spiritual fluctuation had already enveloped the entire desert town, and in the next moment, found it. Chen Tian had already scanned the tens of thousands of people in the town and successfully found the target of his trip. Subsequently, he gathered his psychic abilities, stood up and disappeared into his hotel room. In the desert town, in front of a pet store, a tall, muscular figure with long blonde hair was ending an argument with the clerk. Huffing and huffing, he walked outside the store. This place is also too strange, you can't find a war horse in the atrium. As the figure walked, he couldn't help but whisper, is it possible for me to walk over and retrieve my hammer? Quote. Chen Tian, who was standing on the side of the road, looked at Thor, the god of thunder walking in front of him, listening to the words in the other party's mouth. His eyebrows raised and his face was strange. The strange person is you, right? Where can I find horses in this special pet store? He also couldn't help but spit on Thor, the god of thunder, in his heart. 07 But after thinking about it, the other party is indeed not more familiar with the earth than he is eating into a dead fat house in the future. Come to think of it. He suddenly turned towards Thor's back and said, I listen to which hammer you want to go to. Coincidentally, I'm going too, and we can go together if you want. Chen Tian didn't mind helping the other party. After all, his purpose this time was to come to Thor the god of thunder. If he could, Chen Tian would be more willing to use peaceful means to copy the other party's capabilities. Meantime, he also remembered that Loki would also appear tonight, but he could copy the other party's ability by the way. After all, this is also the only opportunity in this time period. The next time, if you want to see Loki, you will have to wait until the Battle of New York.